Welcome to the Jon Corbin Podcast. My name is Jon Corbin. This is a show of meaningful conversations where I sit down with artists, thinkers, and interesting people to tell stories on the themes of creativity, inspiration, community, and learning together. You can find out more about the podcast at my website, joncorbinmusic.com, and you can find me on social media. My Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram handles are at Jon Corbin Music. That's JONCORBIN. That's right, there is no H. And finally, we are Patreon supported. You can find out more at patreon.com/Jon Corbin. Your Patreon support is greatly appreciated. It not only allows the show to keep running, but allows it to reach for higher levels. If you want to provide monthly support, there are no tiers. You can just pay what you choose, and that gives you access to bonus material around the podcast, but also exclusive creative work like new songs, poems, essays, and a whole lot more. And today's guest has a bunch of stories. He's got a bunch of stories. We go way back. This is episode 2. And I thought it'd be great to touch on big parts of my career in getting involved in hip-hop music. And so why not bring in one of the guys I've known the longest? I will mention that this is another episode that was recorded pre-COVID. If you've been tracking along, I had a few banked episodes to get myself started, and I still think that they're very valuable. But you'll hear us talk about reference to traveling to the States. As a Canadian that's living with closed borders, that's not really going to happen. So keep that in mind, and I think that there's a lot that you'll be able to get out of it. And now, Dr. MC, wordsmith, Dr. Cyril Guerette. How's it going?
I'm well. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. We are live in the Corbin basement.
Live, ready for some real stories, man. Talking about those days in the grimy underground of hip-hop, right?
It's the days of old for sure, eh? When we start to recount, we've known each other for about 16 years now.
Yeah, man.
It's pretty crazy. Amazing. All right, so I hate long bios, but I want people to get to know you. So quick, who are you?
My name is Cyril Guerette. I am a professor at Tyndale University. I teach in philosophy and theology. I did my PhD at U of T, St. Michael's College. I am also a pastor of a church called Groundswell Church. It's a church plant with the Christian Missionary Alliance in the Halton region, so kind of Burlington, Oakville. And then I live in Waterdown, so we also got in Hamilton kind of connections, and all the way Milton here is part of Halton as well, so I gotta show some love there. And I'm also a rapper, Il Seer, dropped some records back in the day, still appearing as a guest often on this guy's probably most released as a guest on Mr. Corbin's beautiful opus he's had as this journey of hip-hop collaborator. And I am a father of 3, so Dominic, Justice, and Selah, and from 12, 10, and 9. And my wife Megan is a beautiful visual artist who holds us all down in the lovely little town of Waterdown, although we were in Toronto for most of our marriage. So I've been married about almost 17 years this year. Yeah.
Shout out to Megan. You answered my other questions. What do you do and who do you keep close to you? So now, this last piece, describe yourself in one word.
One word. In one word, nerd. You know what I'm saying? Word.
Definitely a word nerd.
Yeah, I would say that. Like, when I think of one word, I want to describe myself as word. I think in words. I have aphantasia, so I don't see pictures, so words are my main commodity. I think of the word as the source of all life. Jesus Christ is the word, but he's the spoken word that created all creation, so I love that. I love word used as like an affirmative, as an amen word, because that's truth, and truth is the center of all being, along with beauty and I feel, and being and goodness. So I feel like word helps sum up a lot of who I am, man.
That's it. I love that. I haven't heard that before. That's awesome.
I never had that test before, but I like it. That's a good one.
Okay. So I told you this off, but it's not a joke. I'm going to tell you what I say about you behind your back. This is it.
That's hilarious.
So I was doing this today as I was saying.
It's real.
I told my coworker, I'm doing a podcast interview today. And she's like, oh, that's so exciting. Who are you interviewing? I said, my friend Cyril that I have known for a decade and a half.
ever.
And so here's what I say. He is a pastor, and he has a PhD, which I think that might be the only person I know with a PhD, and it's really unique. I said, it's a really unique PhD. And they go, what? And they're already intrigued. They want to know. And I talk about the connection between Old Testament prophecy and hip-hop freestyle.
Ah.
And so now they're just like floored. And they're, what is this about? And I'd say, like, Cyril says this to me for as long as I've known him. Like, in the Old Testament of the Bible,
yes.
when prophets come and they're asked, can we have a word from the Lord? And they say, go play me some music.
Yes.
And then I'll spit.
That's right.
Right?
The minstrel.
It's like, give me a beat.
Yes.
This is what it's like.
That's
and
right,
man.
And
I say, he's an amazing wordsmith.
Oh, thank you.
And that matters to me as someone, as an MC, and I'm someone who cares about creativity and words. And then I would say, probably at his peak. No, you might check me on the adjustment on the percentage, but I said at his peak, I've heard him speak in sermons that are like 65 to 70% in rhyme.
Yeah, I've created some that way for sure. You're right. I've done like almost completely in rhyme, like shorter ones. But yeah, you're right. Definitely.
This floors me every time.
Yeah.
And then what else do I say?
That's amazing.
I like to talk about
you put it that way, it's amazing. It was a special project or two, but yeah, I've definitely done a few where it's that's the sermon. That's a good point.
And maybe I'm lucky enough just to be in the building when those are happening.
I don't know if you're lucky or if you're part of the inspiration, bro.
Does he do this all the time? Like, you've come and guest preached at our church, and I hear the rhymes, and it's because it's a church service. I don't want to be like, ah! Maybe I can snap my fingers, or.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I catch that for sure. That always, and then I talk about psalm bombing.
Yes,
which is a project, something that's emerged, and so this happened today as we were talking. My coworker says, I say the rhymes, and then I say psalm bombing, and she's like, "Oh, this is a church I want to go to."
Nice.
I was like, "Oh, I'm so interested that you're interested."
Yeah, we got to resurrect psalm bombing. I was just thinking about the other day. I want to do some more events like that, or like even just do some. I was talking to a guy who does TV and stuff. I was like, we could just do this. Like, yeah, we got to follow up on this.
Yeah, so tell us,
because you're part of that, man. Like, you're from the get-go, right? Like, that psalm bombing is definitely.
Tell us about psalm bombing as an event for.
Yeah, psalm bombing
prayer.
is definitely it's just basically art of doxological freestyle. So it's using freestyle rhyme to worship. When you look back, Hippolytus is one of the earliest. Bishops of Rome talks about how when they used to do the Eucharist, they would have the priest do basically like a kind of a freestyle poetic version of the Eucharist. They'd always do it extemporaneously. But then as the church grew, they didn't have enough people skilled enough in it, so they started writing down the mass. So if you think about early on, like some of those early Christian worships, there was someone kind of freestyling. Now, were they using rhyme or what poetic devices? But they were using the sound intonations for sure. They were kind of sung, kind of poetic chants over the scriptures, right? So that's kind of been part of the church from the get-go. We know for sure David was doing it. He was psalm bombing and freestyling. We know because Amos kind of makes fun of like, I improvise songs on the harp like David. He's kind of teasing that, but that's what David would actually do, right? And he actually would talk about that, and that just revolutionized the whole atmosphere in Israel. Like I believe he created a cultural revolution with the kind of rebuilding of the Levite singers and turning them into this kind of choral, kind of musical, poetic, psalm-making group, which continued for forever, right? So influencing most of music, right? I would say like, and even including the blues and the singing of the laments, like these things are all kind of like allowing some of that to be part of religious worship. I feel like what we have today in hip hop kind of is just like continuing the psalmic tradition, I guess, right? So, I mean, you have Augustine, who was the Bishop of Rome, Bishop of Hippo in North Africa, although he was in Rome and Milan as a professor. He moves back to Africa, and he writes the Psalmus contra Donantis. So he has a whole tract in rhyme against an adversary who would use poetry to kind of perpetuate heresy, right? So we had this going on for a long time.
You just said battle rap.
Yeah. Well, dude, if you read the Confessions, he used to win the battle rap competitions in Milan as a professor, and then he started doing that. Like we have a couple of the ancient fathers using kind of poetry to fight against what they would call heresy at the time.
Oh man.
But freestyling would basically be just kind of creating that stuff, especially in prayer. I believe prayer is powerful language, talking to God. Things come out. And then when you do that with music being played spontaneously, and me and you, maybe a couple other people going back and forth, just creating spontaneously, sometimes moments of it are kind of dull or not technically great, but there's also moments of like pure inspiration, and you're like, oh, this is where music is meant to be, like the jamming culture. And I've heard they're starting to do this a little bit more on the West Coast. There's a church in Portland that's using a lot of the Levite language and freestyling, and I was like, what? So I want to find out a little bit more about what's going on over there, because it's basically, I think, part of what it means to be a Christian musician nowadays is being able to do that type of thing. So I love spontaneity as part of worship.
It's fantastic. It sounds like we need to take a trip out to Portland. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I know, for real, man.
Oh man, okay.
Humblebees and stuff.
Yeah. So the events that I've been to, I was one at Heritage College in Cambridge, where you were a professor for a while.
Yes.
And there would be, so there's really for the uninitiated, which always impressed me. So we have some musicians together, and they would play and jam together and create music, and then there would be the space for students to get up and pray in freestyle rhyme. And a lot of them, again, uninitiated, had never attempted rhyme before.
Yeah.
But we're trying to pray in this new way. I found it fascinating.
That was really, they're vulnerable. They get up there, they kind of try it. Some of those kids I remember would tell me about, how that impacted them from going on. They started creating writing and stuff. And I remember the first guy who actually believed that he was in charge of Missions Fest that year, a student of mine, and he called me and asked me to do that, and I'll never forget it, because he had ended up passing away as a missionary in Asia. Actually, I got hit by a bus, but he saw that. He was like, "No, this is something we can do," and we turned it as part of the mission fest at Heritage. And I thought, it was amazing to see some missionaries come out and they're watching this, and people come up and just reading psalms over the music being played live, and musicians kind of just coming and jamming all together. And so I've done that. We've done it a few times, right? We did it in Toronto before,
we did. The one that I have recorded is from beatboxing.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, so there's a beatboxer, and then there were several MCs, and then you and I, the clip I have is about 10 minutes of us going back and forth, freestyling.
I love that. I remember that one, yeah.
Next day, I'm asking for my daily bread. Next, you can say I'm gonna get in the text, because every time I get in the text, I learn, grow, believe, and he's planted the seed, so that allows me to get free, and bust some freestyles with steady ease, and then believe I'm gonna get my pen and write, or get on the laptop, get in the bad plot. Never that, I'm asking for the time to get on the microphone and reflect divine, and if that's my time, for sure, I'll do this without a microphone. Best believe it's pure, like I'm in my car, driving, freestyling, asking the Lord to bless me for miles, and driving through like Danny Michelle. We rocking guitars and music as well, getting into it, head don't swell. I'm just feeling the spirit, and I'm trying to get to rock the bells. Can't get there yet, Cyril's gonna take over, praising Jehovah. Praise to Jehovah. Praise to Jehovah. It's not over, so we'll hover, cause God is a lover. He's like a brother who likes to fight for us. Guess he does the right for us, and I got the mic and I'll strike up dust. I'll be kicking it from my feet, cause I kinda come sweet and kinda deep, cause I gotta ask God for the treats and my nourishment and encouragement. Oh, I have to say I got encouragement from my rhyme partner. You don't hear lyrics much smarter than the ones we heard from Mr. Corbin, and I'm absorbing, trying to get this is kind of exorbitant.
Good stories.
Yeah.
So
a little reggae in that too, right?
That's right. I remember that too. Okay, so then the last thing I'd say about you behind your back is my frustration with the wordsmithery that doesn't get recognized. So if I don't know if listeners can tell, but you're of the Caucasian persuasion.
Yeah.
Right? And to me, contextually, you actually put me onto LP, the rapper, who's now the producer behind Run the Jewels with Killer Mike. So everyone knows Run the Jewels, but nobody knows that LP could actually spit.
Yeah, right.
And there was always this left of center or alternative, quote unquote, alternative hip hop that would have had an audience in the States, right, with a much bigger country, and you were out here rhyming with the fire of Chuck D, but not his skin tone,
right?
So you never got the respect, and that always bothered me, because it's I would take your wordsmithery in any battle, but it's almost like because you have this unusual style,
right? It
doesn't land with a larger audience.
Yeah,
that frustrates me. Where I'm just like, this guy's really dope.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah. You know what? Like, I felt that way for a long time. I remember I used to pass on my CDs and we're trying to get buzz. And I remember one time I was on a message board. I think it was philiflava.com, and there's a couple of people on there. One of them was Slug from Atmosphere, but he was a Sean, and he would say, and him and a couple of people kind of had my CD, and they were, oh, he's dope. He said something like that, and I always remember being like, okay, like someone good thinks that my words were good, and
right?
I realized really early on, probably not going to be my main thing to get recognition for, or like, although it was cool to do that thing with Drew Brown, and then kind of get, I was out of nowhere get this award for the Rap Song of the Year last year, which was basically me doing my poetic kind of thing for church, and then him having a dope beat and taking it and turning it into something that became more palatable, I guess, for the me. I don't know what it was, but it was the perfect timing for it as a vehicle. But but I appreciate you saying that to me, man, because I feel like I think you have a similar conundrum in terms of being Canadian. I feel like if you were in America, you would then acknowledge even greater. Like, you have, obviously, a lot of people recognize your music. It's like, but you have that pop sensibility. Like, people just they catch it, they feel it in, they're going. Just wish you had a bigger audience. You know what I mean? Like, which maybe this podcast will help people recognize that too. Because
Maybe. I am fine for people to enjoy this journey because
this is you've always been cool about, right?
Conversations, man.
And you're always putting other people on too, which is kind of, I think, pretty amazing, where you're always helping other people get discovered and trying to put them out, and which I think is part of what I recognize since we first met.
Right.
The catalyst.
That is actually my next question. I'm really bad at remembering these things, so I often ask people in conversation, how did we meet? Because I never remember. So I'm going to ask you, do you remember how we met?
Yes, I remember. Like, depends on how you met. We e-meet or when we see-meet?
That is a good question.
So the first time we met, like, in any form, would be electronically through connection through Plastic at Spheres Hip Hop, who said, you guys are both down in Canada, like, you should know each other. And I remember I had just I had talked to him a few times. I met the listener out in the States at one point because I had connected with him, and then I came back here, and I went just basically this, like, you got to meet this guy Jon Corbin, and so we got in touch and we started talking, and then I remember you inviting me out to a night that you were basically already going to be a catalyst. You said, I'm going to have a bunch of MCs come through. So Plastic has been running a website for 2 decades called Sphere of Hip Hop, which has taken multiple forms. It has been a blog and news site, music review site for Christians in hip hop, I would say it that way. And it also collected fans and artists in a message board forum. He put out albums like Mind the Gap and stuff, and so I remember he put my stuff out on one of his albums one time, and like from the very get-go, he was one of the guys I would actually support. Yeah, right. I have to say, Plastic was always really a catalyst for the whole scene of people who had faith but were rappers.
So I knew him in 2001, just emailing him and asking him questions about blogs he was writing on his website, and then shortly after, I started writing for various internet outlets like music reviews. And so he was one of those people that's always on it. Like, he would send me CDs so I could do reviews. So we had been emailing back and forth for a couple of years, and then it was him to say, hey, there's this guy I know that's also a Christian that raps, and like, you know, Americans like, oh, in Canada, you know, so-and-so, and they like live in Saskatchewan, and you're in Ontario. No, we were in the same like Tri-Cities. I was going to school at Wilfrid Laurier in Waterloo, and you were living in Kitchener.
Yeah, I moved to Kitchener right when I got married in 2003.
Yeah, neighboring city. So then, we were.
Yeah, we were basically in the same hood, right?
Yeah.
And then,
so again, my memory's fuzzy if it was 03 or 04, but I had a radio show. It was probably I had a radio show. And
it could have been even 2002 or something.
It's possible because my second year was 02, and I had a show that year.
Yeah, I think it was 02 maybe.
Okay.
So we might have met even before I got married, just before, because I remember I also had we had the prophetic show. I think that was right before I got married, or right around when I got married.
Oh, with Mars Ill.
Yeah, Mars Ill and the listener
in Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another story there, but that will take us on a digression.
It was around that time. That was...
Yeah, I got my friend's car towed. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness, yeah. So this early. So this might be 01, 02.
Yeah.
So yeah, I invited you to come out to my radio show, and during the evolution of the show, at Radio Laurier it's an internet radio station at the time. It's located in the campus, like in the main student area, and any hip hop show could be frequented by MCs that would just come and say, like, "Kill me freestyle." Yeah. And so you just got used to giving a section of your show to come and do freestyle. So when Plastic put me onto you, I said, "Come on and do an interview."
Yeah, and I think we actually met at your house. You had a bunch of us over at your house, and then we walked over from there to the radio show. I think. That was
like a special night. But the one I remember beforehand is you show up to do the interview. You bring some music with like this real left of center hip hop that I'd never heard of before, and I'm playing it on the show, and then we're going to like get you to freestyle on the mic, and then the room fills up with MCs.
Yes.
And it was, which wound up being like our kind of running mates.
Yeah,
right?
Like Soul Natural.
Shad was there.
Yeah, man.
And Kinsman the Mere Mortal.
Yes.
And they all came and freestyled, including you.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, there was like, you had like three other people around you.
There was like a synergy there, man. I remember those moments. That was like, those are just awesome days. I remember listening to like some of those sessions that you did. We had on Off the Head top, right? I think like we put out as a little mixtape or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think Relic was on one of them. Came through.
Yeah, that was the big one that you're. That was the one that that was the met at my apartment.
Yeah.
And then we walked to my house, my student house, and then we walked down to the station. The station was like, it was like on a weekend, so we just had 2 or 3 hours to kick it and rap and just listen to music and stuff. And a bunch of those freestyles I remember putting onto different compilations.
For sure, man. And it was funny, even then I remember the first time I heard Chad freestyle, because I've been freestyling for years, and especially when I was in the UK and stuff, came back and I was like, oh, like that's legit freestyle. Like you can tell when it's real, but then it's also like so good. And you're like, whoa, this is a talented dude, right? Yeah. Which obviously proving itself true.
Very true. What I loved about him is that he was very willing to be in the cipher.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if there weren't people necessarily at his level. He was, give and take.
Yeah, he had that smile and he kind of played with it.
Yeah. Just enjoy being around people that like to spit.
Yeah.
And you never had that air about, that he was better than anybody else.
No, it was those moments were magical because it felt like there was just a lot of love for hip hop in the room, right? And that is like, I think that's what's cool about mine. Your friendship is because it was before I was a pastor. I mean, I was doing my PhD, but I wasn't a professor quite yet. I became a professor really kind of early in, but it was just like it was about the love of hip hop that was always kind of like obviously our faith and our love for teaching and all these things kind of connected us as well. But at the beginning of it all, it's like this love of hip hop, which does all those things.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And you don't actually find too many people in Christian circles like that in love with the culture or expression.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a rare thing that you hang on to.
That's very true, man.
Yeah. Yeah, those are fond moments for me, just remembering that, like an energy in the room, like you're saying, because it's a building of a community. Like if it was 02, like you're saying, and it probably was, then, there were, 2-3 years there. I remember us releasing a compilation in 05, and doing shows at Laurier in 05.
Yeah, the hip hop helps, right?
Yeah. And those are things that are really difficult to replicate.
Yeah.
Just being around that many people that are enthusiastic about the culture and selfless, and we just enjoy each other's company. But there was a number of rhymes spit together.
Yeah, it was probably end of 2003, 2004 when I moved to Kitchener.
Okay.
So it was even before that we had started talking. So we were definitely already kind of vibing. It's funny how those things work out too, and the different connections that come out of it. Like just thinking about with Relic and his great musical career as well, and just the touching base. Like it feels like from the get-go when I was with you, I feel that kind of hip hop kind of synergy. And then you were really good at just helping people come and connect and make those things, create a natural environment. Because that show would be, you were hosting it, right? And you'd be like,
right, yeah.
And it was just like, and you weren't even rapping that much publicly at the time. I remember I always kind of encouraged you. We all did because we just knew you had it. But you were like you were DJ, you were organizing, you were kind of like a hip hop activist in many ways, right? You kind of help us all get things together and helping create that scene. And then, but it had that real vibe to it. And then I remember that kind of that being almost being phase one of your kind of hip hop. You know what I mean? Like you were kind of like the Diddy helping throw shows and stuff before you became the rapper or whatever. Like, because I feel like what happened was then after you started doing music. But when you did it, you were like putting bands together, and you were remember, you know what I mean? I was like alive. Yeah. You started drawing together your other loves, not just the hip hop side, but like, okay, I love this type of music, I like folk music, and the shows started becoming. As soon as you kind of saw what we were doing live, what was potential, you started pulling together. Because a lot of times, what I would always do is just play my track of my music and rap over top of it, which I loved and I did. But I was in England. I used to work with a live band. I used to love it, and we had a jazz band. And Sarnia had a live band too, yeah. So I had bands live a lot. But what I loved is that you were able to help organize that, because bands aren't the easiest to keep going. People don't realize that. I've seen, like, I saw my live band in England. I saw the bassist punch the keyboardist on stage during a gig. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, and then he's trying to hold 11 musicians together. That kind of octopus was no more.
Okay, please tell that story.
It's as simple as it goes. Like the keyboardist helped run a whole bunch of us together, and it was one of the basically put out ads for people. I answered an ad to be an MC, and then another guy, this guy named Ninko, did as well. And we ended up both doing it, and we had like 2 female singers, a male singer. He was like a lounge singer, and he created this whole band. It was awesome. It was called Octopus, and we were this big 11, 12-piece acid jazz band. But the keyboardist was really particular because he wanted to run everything and keep it all together. At one point, the bassist got mad and punched him on stage. And then I think we did like one show after that again. And it was like, I remember just being up on the stage like, what? Like trying to rap? Like, what's going on? Trying to calm them down. So my point being, like, live music, it's complicated, right? Band members have to all get along. And so when you started making that part of your live show, that was, I saw like a next stage of like, whoa, this is like...
Yeah. I was in a place where I thought I was supposed to be, and maybe it was phase one, as a promoter, as a DJ. Like when the MCs would come and try and freestyle, I started not just like playing a beat and then playing another beat. I started blending beats. I started like keeping the vibe going so we could freestyle for 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
And so that's how like I got my DJ chops. Yeah. And sort of mixing beats. And then I remember I was a guest. I was sitting in on someone else's show and there was freestyling happening. And then I jumped on the mic once and everyone said, whoa, like, where did that come from? We didn't know, we knew you as a DJ. We didn't know that you could rhyme. Yeah. And then there was one other time I remember, just freestyling in my room. And then it felt like a spiritual experience. And all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, this is like, me communicating with myself and with God. And all of a sudden I can rhyme. And then there's all these people around me, like yourself and Kinsman and Shad and Fraser and Soul Natural, and just being, like, you can do this. Yeah. Yeah. I remember getting trips out to your apartment in Kitchener because you had the microphone.
Yeah, I could record it, right? Yeah, it was one place where you could record stuff.
And that's how my demo got done.
Yeah, because we did a lot of stuff that same day. We came in and like you were there and Shad and Fraser and Mere Mortal, and we recorded like a couple of songs, and then I remember Shad did a couple little things, and you were recording things for even your mixtapes and stuff. Yeah, and I remember we did a bunch of projects all together. Yeah. I look back on those days going like, I remember what happened was I was just getting I was becoming a professor. I was getting busy, and I kind of I don't know how much time I have. And I look back, I'm like, I had so much more time than I realized. We should have just like recorded an album, or you know what I mean? Like but you don't realize at that time you're just living. You think it'll remain forever. Yeah, right. But it was cool, man. I remember that. I remember Shad there rapping. I remember and we were just in my my big extra room because I didn't have any kids. And stuff.
Yeah, no kids.
It was fun, man. And you were organizing even then. You were like, okay, we gotta do this drop. And I remember that because a lot of the projects would get kind of done that way. I think in hip hop, that's one of the things you need is someone to help manage the projects, make sure things get to completion, and that was really helpful.
It's the energy. I see that now. That there's energy that needs to be required, and like a band, everyone has a role. Yes. Right, and so. As long as people are cool with it. Yeah. And that's, I'm in a group right now with a bunch of teachers that do hip hop music.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so there's like a DJ and there's like graph writers and producers and all this stuff. And even like new to the craft MCs that we're like mentoring along, and we're all teachers. And so what's neat is there's a level of selflessness in the group where, some people are pouring out energy to like start tracks, and other people help finish it along. And to this point, it's not a year old, but you don't hear a lot of complaining about, who's doing what in the group. Like, we're just, people give what they can give, and things just flow along. And that's, that level of community, again, like, it's hard to find. And so you hang on to it when it's there.
Yes.
We had one song as a group, called Soul Raise.
Oh, I love that track.
Yeah. And it wound up being a bonus track on my live record.
Yeah.
Live at the Palindrome.
Live at Palindrome, man.
Which you were on as well.
That was a magical moment. That story is the story I was wanting to tell, maybe.
That's look how this thing is flowing. So as part of the pod, what I have asked the guests to do is to talk about a time where the guests and I have worked together or collaborated. It could be an event, it could be a song, it could be anything that would elicit some kind of conversation, and that leads us to this idea of creativity or inspiration or community or learning. And so the guests come prepared with a story, and so do I.
Yes.
And your story is about this live record. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, Live at the Palindrome, man. I remember it really clearly because it was in the thick of the time when I was starting to get things kind of tighter, and I think I was pastoring at the same time as being professor. I think it was right around that time, right? What year was it? It was
2007.
Yeah, so it was right after that year. I thought that's what I was pretty sure. So 2006, I became a pastor. So I'd moved back to Toronto, and I was professor at Heritage. And me and Megan were, newly married. We were probably like 4 years in now, and it was kind of one of those life-changing moments when we're like, okay, we start thinking, do we try for kids? And you're starting to get things together. And I remember feeling kind of pulled away from the hip hop world in many ways because I just didn't have the time or the bandwidth. And I always wrote a little bit, or I'd do things here and there, but I could see even friendships where I just drop by their houses all the time and we make music, or those things were just, they weren't in the regular rhythm anymore. And it wasn't to do with anything against any of the dudes or anything. It was just like life happened kind of, you know what I mean? And they kind of fade away, and but you feel this kind of part of you is like, I love this music. It's part of who I am. I always want to be part of what I am. And in many ways, you were kind of my connection to that world still, because you were like good at checking up and seeing how you're doing, and that was really helpful for me because I was in the flux of life, and I loved it because I becoming a pastor of new community and getting to know people, but your energy just gets so taken up. And I remember you were working on this project, and we would do some live shows, and you would call me out every once in a while. Hey, you want to come to do this live show? And it was this awesome live band. You had Carrie on the drums, and it was like so good. And I think it was Andrew on the keyboards,
Andrew
right?
Karam.
Yeah, Josh on the
Josh McFadgen playing bass. Also, he also has triplets.
Oh, wow, it's the triplet crew. Wow, man. And then your cousin Krista was doing the vocals.
Yeah, oh, man.
And Carrie could do some
good.
raps on top of things too. And just getting to come play with you guys, different live shows. And I got lucky because I was being the backup guy. So I knew all your songs. Yeah. So, and I had them in my head. So I just come in and I could just do ad-libs behind them, back up where you needed to breathe. And then we had a couple songs together. So we get to do C-rap runs and, we do a freestyle or two. And so I could kind of keep in touch with that world. I remember we did a show at the Hard Rock Cafe at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Like there was lots of different things that but you were kind of helping me stay in touch with that world. And then the schools every once in a while have you guys come in and would do something at the school. So it was kind of this kind of cross-pollination. But I remember when you were ready to do this record, and because you had all your songs and we would practice them, and I remember the day you called and you were like, hey, are you coming? And I was just like, there was this moment of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go. I just, you know how you kind of can freeze up, and then I was like, I need to go. I don't know why. I just have to. And I had something. There was a big thing that was happening. I was like, no, I have to go do this. And I remember showing up in that the studio. It was in Kitchener, right?
Yeah, at the University of Waterloo.
Yeah, and so I guess Waterloo. Yeah, it was KW, and we were outside. And I remember just kind of talking, and there was the producer. What was that guy's name?
Oh my gosh, he was like the house producer.
Yeah, and he was awesome though because he was like he believed in you, man, and he loved what you were doing. And we were just all talking, and there's this kind of vibe in there, and you had this feeling of like, okay, we got to go in there and we got to rock this like pretty well perfectly because you're not going to stop. It
was live.
Yeah, a whole live album, one take. And I remember at first getting out there and just being like, I just going to let it go. And I loved it because it just kind of, my whole thing was like helping big you up and then coming in between times. And the vibe of it made me feel like that's one of those moments in hip hop where I'll always remember this, the feeling of the love of the music. And you're going back and forth and you're dropping your songs and then you go into doing like covers of, what's her name?
Jill Scott.
Yeah. It was so good, right?
Yeah.
And people that didn't even know you or your music could connect in because you were connecting to the music from their childhood too. And just the way it was all put together, it is probably one of my favorite live moments, even though it wasn't really in front of a big audience. There was an audience on the radio, and there was the producer there watching it, and I just felt like, it wasn't probably a more perfect performance in many ways.
Man, it's so great to hear your perspective on that, because like you actually take me to like what it was like being outside, before going in, because I can remember my cousin like doing the vocal warm-ups, and I was like, oh yeah, that's something that people do when they use their voice a lot. I was like, I was going to go and rap. Oh man. And then
time after time.
Oh yeah, we did like, so yeah, if you're not familiar with my music, then you need to check this out on Bandcamp. It's called Live at the Palindrome. It was, June 2007. It was about a month after the CD release party for my first album.
Yes.
A Brief Word. And I actually had that set recorded as well. And back then, it wasn't a digital rendering. It was to CD.
Right.
So there was a machine recording it. And as the set was over, it was rendering to CD. And somebody stepped on the power cord. And all the power was gone. And that project was completely gone. I don't know if we had this live thing set up at UW at the time or not, but there was a host over there, KLP, Chrissy Lee Palma, and she was a longtime supporter of the scene and then my music, and she's like, oh, we'll get you to a live to air, which is what UW did with their station. It was a terrestrial station, like you could get on the airwaves.
Yeah.
And they would do it. They would have regular live to air performances.
Yeah.
And so she was the one that brought us in, and they had this beautiful studio, UW designed by engineers, right? Called the Palindrome, and you walk in and it looks straight out of the 70s, and there's all these weird orange colors on the wall, but the acoustics were awesome.
Yes.
It was really, really good.
And it felt, I remember we were kind of in a circle, and everyone could see each other in the band, so you're all looking at each other, and you're kind of just vibing and kind of singing at the right time.
Yeah.
I'm kind of coming in with ad-libs. I love it because I could just shout random things and stuff, right?
Pretty much.
Which is what I like to do sometimes. So.
And you were a wild card in that sense because, like, you had not rehearsed with us.
Yeah.
It was just like, the songs.
Yeah, and I've done them each kind of different ones live before with one.
Yeah.
But it was never a whole practice. That.
And we had a bit of a set together and an understanding of, the intricacies were things that would like catch you off guard. So like we were doing a song, we were doing The Look of Love from my album, but we had like put the jazz, we put some of the jazz stuff into it that wasn't on the album. So like you didn't know that. And then all of a sudden in the middle of the song, we switch to Golden by Jill Scott, and the tempo just ramps up super quickly, and like you just jump right in, like doing the hype ad libs.
Yeah.
And like I'm thinking at the time, like, he has no idea where we're going and is totally fine with it. The Look of Love.
Yeah. So I watched her watching me across the room, and now I can't see how I could deny 5'8" with size and so fly. Maybe this just might be. And if it is, watch me celebrate, maintain, celibate. Critics relate that one girl's monotonous. I found a love that says that's preposterous. She is mine and now there's no stopping us. What we holding, Jill Scott Golden. 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 What we holding, Jill Scott. Sounds so good, you want to shout it all right? Check it. What we holding,
golden, Jill Scott golden, free, living my life for her promotion. All hard work without the love potion. Demonstrate bonds as deep as the ocean. Watch us groove across the dance floor. Lift our hands high and praising the Lord. Holding back respect I can't afford, cause y'all need to see that it's so much more. I'm living my life like it's golden. 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 Golden. Living my life like it's golden. Living my life like it's golden. Living my life like it's golden.
Because I told you I love spontaneity. That's my thing. Yeah. And I went in there going like, I got to be the best like Flavor Flav I can be, but like you know what I mean? That's what I was like. I gotta just like have good energy and kind of fun and kind of say things and right. So hopefully like Flavor Flav mixes Chuck D, because I want to have Chuck D's my hero that way. But
well, yeah, I mean you gave me an appreciation for Public Enemy because that was the era before.
Yeah, that was the old school.
So yeah, so that you would use Flavor Flav as your reference on the other side.
Yeah.
And it was so great because Carrie had gotten used to doing the ad-libs as well, and so I was always nervous that the two of you would kind of step on each other, and it didn't happen. It was just this. It actually provided this more energy.
Yeah.
Because then Krista could also do vocals or hype stuff and, call and response. And all of a sudden you've got this you've got three vocalists behind you. That never happens in hip hop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you were vibing, man. You were on your thing. You're like, that's the other thing I give you. You're a competent professional in terms of like delivering the lines without falters and things, which I maybe don't practice enough, or I haven't had it at the time. So, but live, like that's why I love that role with you, because you kind of have you're the solid line, and then you can kind of play off that, and it creates. Because I remember we did that when we went to that thing in was it Pickering or was it Markham or Newmarket?
Yeah, it was Markham.
Yeah, the Alliance Church.
It was a Good Friday.
Yeah,
and this Alliance Church, they would have they would have a youth service.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, it's like a Good Friday youth retreat.
And they had us come out. We even did like freestyling over the main worship band. Yep. Remember they did Our God is Mighty to Save, and we came in and did a little freestyle.
That's right.
I think it was Regan, who now is at the CMA.
Regan Newdorf.
Yeah, he had some good vision for letting us go in to do that too.
Shout out to Regan. There was 600 or 700 people in that building.
Yeah, man, it was we rocked that. I remember that live. It was such a good show. Had a great vibe to it, and it was and that was kind of built off of what we did with the album.
Right.
And so that album in the Palindrome, am I correct in thinking that it won like live to air album of the year that year at the university?
Yes, at UW.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of awards from their radio show. It's all like local music.
Award winning.
Yeah.
Live to air album.
And
Mr. Corbin, live at the Palindrome.
It was fun. Yeah, it's the Sonic Boom Awards.
Yeah.
They won a 2007 Sonic Boom.
There you go, man. That was a great show, and I think in many ways helped kind of kick off what you've become in terms of like this ability to have this full holistic sound, I guess, and kind of approach, right? Because even there, you're in the university, you're dealing with the different. It's a relationship build with the KPG, and all of it kind of comes out of the ethos that you've always wanted to build into the hip hop and the musical community. I think in Ontario.
Well, I appreciate that a lot, for sure.
Appreciate you, man.
Oh, word. So, my turn.
Can't wait to see what you got here, bro.
This is, I tell this story a lot when I'm dealing with students or young artists that haven't performed before.
Right.
Or are very new to performing. And this, I don't have a lot of embarrassing moments on stage. But there's something about this that it's super embarrassing, but it's still something I tell a lot, right?
That's awesome.
So it's got to be one of these stories. So just a bit of background, like when I was DJing and finding my way in rap, there was a point of time where you talked about wanting to come alongside people or help people organize. there had been the Canadian Christian music distributor.
Yes.
I developed a relationship with the guy that dealt with distributing Christian music to various bookstores.
Yeah.
And because of my role with the hip hop show and getting to know the scene, I knew a lot of different artists and I'd play their music. And so the guy that I developed a relationship with, he said, like, who should I be looking out for? And I would sort of give him names of people I was playing on my show. So I was at a show with Promise. I dragged my wife to go see Promise because he had a band, and it was one of the rare times he had a band. So I'm like, well, this is going to be like my wife, who doesn't like hip hop as much. Like, this is going to be like a musical evening, right?
Yeah.
And there were some singers there, and Nifty performed, and this is names from like early 2000s, Canadian music
Manifest.
scene. Yeah, and Mano, he wasn't there, but there's some. I gotta get him on the pod. Man.
Yeah, man, no doubt.
There's some traveling stories that we should get into.
Yeah, he's part of that Mars Hill show too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was at that. Yeah, back in 2001. So Nifty comes up to me. I've never met him before, and he gives me this big hug. He's like, John, it's so nice to meet you.
I love
Nifty. Then he starts talking to my wife, and he says, this guy got me a distribution deal before he even knew who I was, before we'd even shaken hands.
What? I didn't know that. That's amazing.
So I gave
you gave Nifty as a name to...
I gave the name to the distributor. I said, here's a guy you should check out. They follow through and get him a distribution deal from like all across Canada where he can get his CDs and all these Christian bookstores, which is the audience that he wanted to go for. So that was a really cool moment just for his gratitude, and I didn't realize, the impact of just being that sort of selfless. And so there's this window where I'm married, so that's 2004. There's a window where I'm not rapping yet, but I'm like priming myself to be your manager.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
I totally remember this. Yeah, because I was doing a lot of shows back then. I would go do a bunch of different shows.
That's right.
I wasn't. That was when I started to feel overwhelmed. So I was like, I need someone to help me to manage all these shows. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I have no idea what I'm doing, which is fine because we grow together. And you had your own label and prophetic poetic. And we're either had an album out or working. Do you remember when Phosphatid Series?
It dropped in 2005.
Okay,
2005. Yeah, so I was in the middle of making that album, and you were always really good at helping get things done, like I said, so you would get shows going, you would musically be able to fill in, do DJing things, and so it felt really like a good synergy there.
Yeah, it was a good connection. I'm just gonna say it again. If you haven't checked out Il Seer's album Phosphatid Series,
thank you.
If you're a Spotify user, just look up Il Seer.
Yeah, ILLSEER.
Because I don't know if you'll be able to spell Phosphatid Series.
Great nutrient.
Really left of center hip hop for sure. So somewhere in here, this managing thing dissolves, and I can't remember why. That's not the point of the story. I mean, you could fill me in if you want, but I
think we just started doing, I was able to do less shows, and you were getting shows you could do, and it just kind of was like, dude, you do shows, I'll show up and help you.
Yeah.
Kind of like I was too busy, right? Honestly, I feel like in many ways, it was a perfect kind of thing where you were starting to grow as an artist and doing your own thing, and then I was just kind of like, John, you could do this, man.
Right.
And it was encouraging. And
so within this then there's this transitioning or bridging where we're doing shows together.
Yes.
And supporting each other depending on who's being featured.
Yeah.
So in the Kitchener area, this is 2006.
Yeah.
There's a one-time Christian music festival called Nidus. And
nest in Latin.
Like most, I hope this isn't any shade. For most festivals, they bite off more than they can chew straight away, and we never saw them again.
Right, but there's some good producers, and it was a good infrastructure.
Yes,
there was some money behind it and everything. I think it was just whether or not they should go for it more. And there's been other little versions, but this was a big.
It was big. They did it big. And they did well with, getting international acts and then investing in the local scene.
Yep.
So I don't remember if it was a hip hop stage. All I remember is that you and I are performing.
Yes.
And it's Il Seer, and I got your back.
Yes.
And so we've been doing this for a while, and I can still hear theory versus practice beat.
Yeah.
And I'll probably have to pipe it into the pod so people can hear it. And it's just like this.
Nihilistic will of power, survival the fittest. Be realistic, admit this. Our inability to kill and guilt not arrive the next hour. It was just muscles, we don't hustle to be Mussolini. Must be we only cuss all we sing, cause really we're fleeing its meaning we're fiending to deny dependence. A reply, that's why we don't spy on intended transcendence. You try to truncate abundance.
Slow build energy and whenever the song starts, we jump in the air.
Yes.
And scream.
Nihilistic will of power.
That's it. And on this occasion, on like a big stage in a big room with lots of lights on us, we jump up and scream nihilistic whoop and bump right into each other. We jumped into each other.
And there was big, beautiful lights. I have pictures, like awesome shots from that show. Like they were in a magazine printed later, the Presbyterian record or something like that. Like some beautiful shots on stage on these, these lights. But yeah.
And I don't remember anything else from that show. I just remember crashing into each other, me dropping the mic. And then I mentioned the lights for a reason, because when you're on stage and there's all these lights, you can't see the audience, right? So I remember bending down to pick up my mic and looking up, and I can see the first 2 rows of people. And the first person I see is your wife laughing her head off.
Megan don't pull the punches, man. She dies.
Not at all. Just smirking
with a bang
and grinning. And it was, I won't forget her smile.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? I remember someone else's smile at that show. We were up on stage. It was either when we were on stage or afterwards. Got off stage. I think it was right afterwards, and it was Shane Claiborne, man. He was looking at us going, looking at, giving us a shake. He had his long braids and everything. Yeah. And I remember seeing him years later. I spoke, and I did a spoken word piece that ended up in a book called Letters to a Future Church. But that moment, I remember talking to him afterwards, and he kind of remembered me. He's like, "Hey, how's it going?" We didn't talk about the Night Festival, but he knew who I was, and we were speaking at a conference later. So we got some respect at the same time, man. We started off with a bang, but I guess the show was good enough to get a nod from, a gifted, modern kind of Christian Mennonite like yourself there.
Yeah.
Background, right?
Yeah, he's not a black Mennonite, but he's good enough.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that he was at that thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Shad played that night of festival too. And I remember we did 100 Huntley Street came around with cameras, and we did I did a spoken word psalm bombing little, like when they break off into workshops. We did one of those, and there was a few people that were rhyming there, and Shad was there, and he rhymed too. I remember that. That was
wow.
Yeah, that was a cool little moment, because that was kind of spontaneous, right? There was just some people, we did this thing, and I remember that. Now I don't know. I remember some little clips ended up on the TV show, but I'd like to see the footage, because that was we were just all in our element then, just kind of being who we were. It wasn't really, we didn't know where it was going or anything. It was just kind of doing the music.
That's great.
Yeah,
I don't recall that at all.
Yeah,
it's amazing. I remember meeting Drew Brown there.
Nice.
And I mentioned that because we now the 3 of us are a part of an artist collective called Personic.
Yes.
And
so you met him there?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize that's where you first met him.
And I guess he was in Winnipeg at the time because he was on a record label.
Yeah.
And the one thing you know for sure is when you have artists, when you meet artists, sometimes you do a CD swap.
Right.
And he couldn't do that because the label wouldn't let him give any CDs away. So he wanted to swap with me, but all I had was my demo.
Oh.
And he's out here talking about how he knows my demo. And I was just that's not true. How is this guy in Winnipeg in the era of MySpace? Maybe
he's got an ear for music, that Drew Brown.
He does. And then in 2016 he hits me up and says, I'm starting a label and I want you to join. And it wound up not looking like a label. It's this artist collective.
Yeah, collective.
And now we're all back together.
Yeah, and doing music and different things, and it's pretty amazing, man, to see how that's a full circle. I didn't realize that you met him at the Nidus Festival.
Yeah. I'm gonna when he comes on the pod, I'm gonna drop that on him as well. But it does lead me to sort of ask you, now you're part of this collective. You've gone through all of this transition. I mean, we'll bring you back to talk about delegates of culture. Like,
right. Of course.
I was in UK, and it's like, you're in UK doing your masters, and like joined a multinational rap group.
Yes.
Like that's part of the industry.
Yeah, and some of them are doing, like, the boy Injun now, man, he's doing massive, like, 45,000 people parties and stuff in Europe and stuff. Like, he just won Drum and Bass MC of the Year, and like, he's like, man. So the whole crew is super talented, the delegates.
And you were part of the lone Canadian representation.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we'll bring you back to talk about that. But so that you've gone through this, like you said, married, and you've got 3 kids, and you did your PhD, and that was a journey and a half.
Yes, you're right. You saw that.
2 different churches, and now a church plant. Like, and yet, clinging to this creative expression.
Right.
Bringing that into your craft, either as a teacher or as a pastor.
Yeah, definitely.
And then recording when you can. Like, what do you see for yourself in terms of that creative aspect of your life?
You know what? It's interesting you said that, because so at the end of every church service, I do a freestyle prayer. I do a psalm bomb. And these are all like, a lot of these people are in their 50s and some in 60s and some 30s, 40s, 20s. But everyone seems to allow me to do it. It's part of who I am. I know before in churches, there's probably some people who didn't like it, but now it's just people know it just kind of comes with the territory. So I love it. I love using freestyle in different places. I love using spoken word in different places. Like I will use it maybe at the CMA National Convention. I might be doing something there with my buddy Darren from Groundswell, Darren Martin. And the Martin brothers. I might be using it at the President Gary Nelson at Tyndale is going to be stepping down. He's resigning. And I might be doing something special at like one of the chapels. They've asked me to do a spoken word piece, and so I love being able to do little kind of interesting, cool things like that too. Like bring it into the kind of the liturgy of life as well. I've done it at friends' funerals or at weddings. So there's that connection. I'm writing a book kind of on psalm bombing about kind of this holistic aspect of poetry being part of the Christian experience. So yeah, there's a number of things happening there. When I probably put out one of my books, I want to put an album alongside it. I got some raps for it, and maybe see if you can throw me a beat or something.
Okay, he's negotiating on the air.
Online.
Well, he's got the relational capital to spend. That's for sure. Beat making. It reminds me of the album that we never made. So maybe there's
C-Rap
a way
Run.
to bring that back. C-Rap Run.
Yes, man.
Okay, so you said the liturgy of life, and I think I wanted to just stop everything. I'm like, we're done here. I love this, the liturgy of life. So my last question is something I've always wondered. It might be my own hang-up, which is fine, but you have been a presence in hip-hop culture, and presence in lyricist culture, which I think is somewhat separate, as a outspoken person of faith,
right,
living in a world with people who didn't share it,
right,
with a boldness that I don't see from other people. Not necessarily to pat you on the back, but I'm just more about like, is this you? Is this intentional? I'm thinking about, and my question's really long. I'm thinking about the other day I was driving in Toronto, and I was pulling out of a parking garage, and I thought I saw Mindbender.
Yeah.
And it was so quick that I was about to like roll down my window and start, and then I was like, I don't know. It was so quick. I thought I saw and it just reminded me of you building relationships with people who like actively don't like faith or religion or Christianity specifically. Yeah. And you're here sort of, this is who I am. I'm doing it with hip hop. Like, where did you get this boldness from? Where did you get this approach from?
That's a good, you know what, dude? It's funny because I started doing hip hop, I'd say separate from my faith in a certain way. I would speak lines of my faith into my words, but it wasn't in the faith community. Actually, first time I ever rapped on stage was at a Christian event. But besides that, like my music was always made with non-Christian people, so I was kind of just speaking my voice as one of the voices in the mix, right? And they would usually let me do that as long as I wasn't kind of over dominating. But I had mentioned faith things, and we would talk about it. They knew part of it was me just kind of struggling through faith and what do I hold and not hold. When I started doing my hip hop stuff in England, I was in the middle of kind of questioning lots of my faith because I was at a master's university. It was kind of they were kind of in many ways deconstructing faith and philosophy. And so I was going through a lot of questioning. So my music would have that as part of it. The questioning was part of it. And I think that was something people could, okay, he's being real. And then as I kind of grew older and my faith became more solid again, I would still hold on to that in my music, but I had all these connections and friends who already kind of loved me and we were connected to. So I, like when you ask me who I keep close, like I keep my family close. I keep, key kind of mentors and elders close, keep people like you close, which, and then I have a group of friends I grew up with since high school. That's like grade 9 who are, those are the people I meet, at least a couple of times a year. We go away, we see each other every Boxing Day, and they're not all Christian. Some are, some aren't. So I'm just, I guess I live in that as a reality. And so that being part of my musicality, I'll make music with some of them too, right? And then they're not Christians, and that's who I kind of started making music with. So I feel like part of it is people like authenticity. So they might not agree with everything I say, but they'll be like, maybe what you said before, you gain the social or the relationship capital to be able to say those things, and we can talk about it afterwards. So I'm hoping that's part of it. And it is an interesting dilemma because I remember, so I'll give you an example. I coach basketball. I'm about to go coach a game tonight. In my last game, one of the players' dads saw my son wearing a hat, and he looked at it and had a Wu-Tang sign on. He's like, does your dad let you wear that? Because he knows I'm a pastor, right? And I was like, that's my hat. Like, that's my hat. And then trying to explain it how to, I love the Wu-Tang and I'm a pastor at the same time. That's a big conversation, but maybe that's part of how that plays itself out.
Yeah. The authenticity. Yeah. I love it. So, okay. So 2020, and you've talked about a book and maybe some, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
But what are you aiming at creatively?
The first thing I need to do is finally release this. I did the book of Habbakuk as a rap. Okay. Over Beats by Theory Has It.
I've heard this.
Yes.
I've heard these.
So I need to just release that and kind of go, okay, it's actually out there in the ether. And then I want to get, my next project will probably go along with this book I was talking about, called Prophets, with the P and the, so prophets is poets, but with the R and the PH in brackets, so it's poets, prophets. And it's about how Christianity has always used poetry as part of its prophetic voice. Like I said earlier, Augustine, Gregor Nazianzus, Ephraim the Syrian, George Herbert in English. So I have a book that kind of breaks in that. In the last section of it, it's going to be kind of talking about hip hop and theology. So that will be kind of something I want to have. I have some poems I've written on that topic a long time ago, but I want it to come out as like a little EP alongside of it. So ththose are probably my two next musical things. But usually the best thing is like you're doing something and I'll jump on a track and go, hey man, drop a verse. Because to be honest, that seems to be where my most productivity comes from. I feel like you're like helping me keep my catalog active. So thank you for that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I wanted to make a shirt with like all the names of all the songs that we've done
together. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, or just put them on CD and help them find
almost like a little mixtape,
yeah,
Spotify playlist or something.
That's it. Yeah. I think that's it. Some of them have yet to go on Spotify, so maybe that's a challenge for me.
Oh, nice. Man.
This is neat. I think that I really hope that the folks listening here are able to engage your work as it comes out. Because I've always really liked it. Yeah.
And I appreciate you've always supported from day one, even though it's, like you said, a little off center in some ways. And I think you've helped me kind of learn a bit about getting that little bit more of that pop voice too, in terms of not pop, but like the conventional musicality. I always think Day of Rest, when I look at songs, I'm like, I really like that song. It catches something that I'm like, I need to that's more people that listen to my catalog go, oh, that song, that's catchable, or see Rap Ride or things like, where it's a little more digestible. I need to recognize that as being an important thing, in a good way, because I do think that the type of hip hop I've put out for a long time was almost for a specialist. Like they have to really like hip hop and certain things. They have to like the dissonance and you know what I mean. So
there's an edge to it for sure.
Yeah. So I'm realizing like there's something that I love that, and that's part of my creativity. But there's also something about being like just a funky beat and you're just kind of bouncing and. Yeah, so I'm thankful for the opportunity to had that as part of my catalog for a while, and now I'm starting to think about how do I make that live band type of thing kind of part of a natural ethos that I kind of return to.
Well, we will watch with anticipation, and when this stuff comes out, we'll bring you back to tell some more stories.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
looking forward to your next project.
Boy,
this podcast.
This is it. This is it right now. The podcast, and we'll just continue to make music and see what happens.
Awesome, man! I can't wait to listen to both.
Great, blessings, man.
Much love.
Peace.
God bless.
Some of those nice days. Feel good. Waking up, shaking up. Something hits my head like lead. My boy said, Daddy, pants, get out of bed. Can't, feeling dead. More patchy than your cabbage. Then it catches me, oh yeah, it's my Sabbath. Silly rabbit, my kids ain't latchkey. Brekkie, I'ma grab it. They spatula smash me. Then back to Batman's lab. It's a lazy day, joking, God's ways and praise. Soaking in creation's sun rays. Listen to the runaway, in a position to obey the fourth commandment, and it, of course, conveys life to me and my wife. Astonished by my day of rest, honestly can say I'm blessed.
Remember your day of rest and keep it holy.
I just stopped and focused on God.
Remember your day of rest and keep it holy.
I just stopped and focused on God.
Find some time to shoot free throws. Next day's task, I see those. I need some strength for your people, cause this work week has been lethal. But your work in me is unequaled, and I'm doing my best to flee evil. Spending time with you in one spot, just chilling, working on my jump shot. See the sun going down, that moment of clarity, how you've been there for me. Reminisce on the ways that you care for me. Sunrise to sunset, prayerfully I seek wisdom, I wanna draw near. Take my conviction, make me a seer. Lifted high on my day of rest, I'll testify that I've been blessed. Remember your day of rest and keep it holy.
I just stop.
Remember your day of rest and keep it holy. Remember your day of rest and keep it holy.
I just stop and focused on God.
Remember your day of rest and keep it holy.
I just stopped and focused on God.
On your day of rest,
take time for your children. Prioritize your relationship building. On your day of rest,
spend time with nature and end any kind of hatred. On your day of rest,
talk to the God of peace. Count your blessings and pray for increase. On your day of rest,
meditate on God's word. Create and permeate what you heard.
Thank you so much for listening to the Jon Corbin Podcast. Please let me know what you think of the episode by connecting with me on social media at Jon Corbin Music, JonCorbin. Find out more information about my creative work at JonCorbinMusic.com. This episode was edited by Tanya for Smart Creations and supported by people like you at Patreon.com/Jon Corbin. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.